Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Scott Schilling Speaks. I'm your host, Scott Schilling. We're going to have some fun here today because we're so simpatico. We are just synchronicity, to the hilt here, both in taglines and thought process. Our guest here today is Lynn Sanders from Difference Makers Media. Lynn, thanks for joining us here on Scott Schilling Speaks.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be here, Scott.
So again, what we were talking about, the tagline for Scott Schilling Speaks is bringing your voice to life. And your tagline is actually bringing your story to life. Very similar, obviously. So why are stories, you are a story marketing coach. Why are stories so important?
Great question, Scott. Well, stories serve many purposes. Stories connect us with each other, first of all, because we connect at the heart level. So when you share your story, you're really opening yourself up to building strong, positive relationship with others. So your stories can educate, they can inspire, they can empower people, and also they can transform lives. So that's what I'm here to encourage all of you to do, is to bring your stories to life, where Scott says, share your voice, bring your voice to life. It all comes together.
Well, where do those stories come from?
Well, our stories come from within, and really it comes from how we perceive our stories. And I think the most important thing I would like you all to remember right now is that your stories matter. They say that a lot because many of us go through our everyday experience not realizing the ripple effect of what you do and what you say and what you think. And that ripple effect touches people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I remember when I was a younger speaker, and I looked at some of them who I really thought were the masters, and I don't know that they taught as much technically or tactically as they did relate stories that got the points across. And it was so impressive to me to see their ability to craft a story that taught the lesson.
Right. Well, I'd like to just even share a very simple little nugget.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because there's lots of ways of telling stories, and there's different types of stories. I've done everything from adult books and writing children's stories and publishing them, to articles, to press releases. So I love storytelling because I know it makes a difference, it builds your impact. And I served a number of years ago as a publicity consultant for a nonprofit. And what I found was when I got their stories out into the media, you never knew what could happen. One of those stories landed on the front page of the Sunday Chicago Tribune. People were reading newspapers more frequently then. And that story got the attention of Chicago's mayor, who was so excited and impressed by what the nonprofit was doing that he gave them a $100,000 award for their program. And that made me realize I was onto something. And that is these stories can really make a difference. And I actually changed my company name. It had been Park Avenue Productions. We had been on Park Avenue and Park Avenue Marketing. And I wanted to really focus and draw more difference makers to me, because I realized that the power of words that you use in speaking or writing can attract or repel people. So I wanted to attract more difference makers, people who are passionate about positive change, to make a bigger difference through their story. So as a result, after that, I've now been able to help people with whether it's crafting their story, the strategy of how to craft it, writing their story, telling it on video like we're doing today, as well as market their story. They're all important.
I'm a huge believer in the power of words, and a single word. In fact, my speaking mentor, the first time I shared the stage with him, I did a 90-minute, he did his talk, and then I did a 90-minute talk after him. But before I went on, he said, would you like to do a debrief afterwards? I said, oh, I would love that. And afterwards, I walked up to him and I said, okay, I had a yellow pad out. I was ready to take all the notes, and he said, you ready? And I said, yes, sir. He said, 38 minutes in, when you said appropriate, Yes. Advantageous would have been a much better word.
Oh my gosh.
And I wrote it down and I said, and he goes, that's it. So literally out of 90 minutes, he picked out one word and said, you would gain so much more power with that. So again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Why do you feel words are so important? Specific words.
All right, I want to share a story with you so you'll recognize the power of words. Because I have a lot of stories. Years ago, I suffered the loss of my mother's sudden passing. This is 17 years ago. And she was the heart of our family. And ironically, she passed away very suddenly from a heart attack. And it just ripped our family to pieces. It was devastating. And I found it very difficult to heal because I still feel a very, close connection, whether she's on this side or the other side. And I was in terrible pain. What happened was that I just didn't know if I felt like going on, even though I'm happily married and have 2 sons. I just, didn't know how I'm going to make it. So as a result of my thinking, because in my mind, the story I was playing out was, I don't know if I want to go on, how am I going to live? I ended up with 3 slip discs because your inner story relates to your outer. All of you need to realize this. So you can tell yourself things. And as I've learned recently, been trained as a mindset mastery coach, we have about 70,000 thoughts that run through our brain every day. And believe it or not, 80% are negative thoughts. We're not aware of all these thoughts, but they're running in our subconscious. And we can only control 2 to 5% of those thoughts. So here I was thinking negative thoughts, because how could I go on? And my back got so bad, I could barely stand. I had trouble sitting. I just could lie on the floor and I didn't know what to do. I went from doctor to doctor. A back surgeon told me I was a great candidate for back surgery because I was in good shape, but I didn't want back surgery. My husband is a holistic dentist. That means he looks at the whole body and looks at natural alternatives, and he suggested an energy healer. At that time, I didn't really think I could believe in energy healers, but I wanted to do something. So I called up this man and he said, I think I can help you. And I said, really? You really think you can help me get my 3 slip discs back into alignment? And he said, yes. So I thought, well, it's worth a shot. I could spend some money and get healed, or spend money and then I have to still go for surgery. And I went to this man and he asked me a powerful question. He said, do you want to live? I'm getting goosebumps. So it tells me I'm in connection for higher sources here. And I said, well, I guess so. And he said, no, it's either a yes or no question. And as I paused to think about it, he said, how would your mother feel? Because he knew I was so deeply connected.
Right.
And then he said, how can you best honor her memory? And so then I knew the answer right away. It was loud and clear. It was, yes, I do want to live. I do want to honor her memory. And from then on, everything went smoothly. And within a relatively short period of time, my 3 slip discs went back into alignment. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And she came to me later, actually, in some dreams, and other things happened to make me aware that we don't just have this earth plane as our consciousness, but we're actually connected with higher sources on the other side that can help us.
I absolutely believe in the same belief in higher source, both God, but also energy. We are energy. I'm actually, it's funny that you say that, because after I do this, I'm going to physical therapy and a chiropractor and because I've been working on, hips and mobility and a variety of different things myself, but a lot of it has been energy work. In fact, my guest last week was Rocky Krugfoss, who is a quantum emotional healer.
So wonderful.
Did a great
so we're all
show.
Connected.
We did a great show on all this. So it's amazing. So I totally understand. But again, the stories we tell ourselves, and I totally agree that we have a choice of what both comes out of our mouth, but also what formulates what comes out of our mouth.
Right.
And we have the choice to do that in either a positive process or a negative process. And it's understandable. There's so many negative messages flying at us, especially with news media and things like that, which quite frankly, I choose not to participate in
Right.
for that reason. So how do you take those words and utilize them to stay in a more positive vein? And again, it's not being Pollyanna. It's not that everything's perfect, but that you're looking for the world conspiring for your good. How do you do that with your words and your stories?
Good question. Well, first, I want people to realize that facts are not stories. So when you meet people in networking situations, you can intertwine your story in a greeting in a very short way. And as far as choosing the words, there's 12 words I learned in Mindset Mastery that you want to avoid for different reasons. And some of them are blame words like could, would, should, or I can't, I will, because it's future tense, I'll try or trying, because it doesn't mean it's definite. Always and never, absolutes you want to avoid. The words that I recommend are words that touch the heart. Like when you mentioned advantageous, that sounds good. Black Lives Matter, that's powerful words versus something that like don't do something. You want to avoid negative words because negative words have a negative impact, just as I mentioned, with my own physical self. So I want to give your listeners 3 short tips. I'm calling it a story blueprint.
Okay.
You can call it your elevator pitch story. So when people say, what do you do? So people typically run off a whole stream of facts, and then you listen, sort of half listen, and then you wonder, what did they do exactly? And you forget because it's just facts. We don't remember facts, we remember feelings. So what you can do is say, I'm passionate about fill in the blank. What do you do? I'm passionate about storytelling. So that's step 1. Step 2 is weave in a sentence or 2 your story into why you're passionate about that. So I'll give you an example. As a publicity expert for a nonprofit, I was able to help them tell their story to the media, which ended up getting the attention of Chicago's mayor and became a $100,000 award. So you want to take something that relates to what you do into a story. So they're going to remember that because it's a story. And then you can have a transitional statement, as I used. It made me realize I was onto something. And the third part of the step of the 3-part story blueprint is say the XYZ, what you do for whom and what the results are. So I help people craft, tell, and share their story. Those are for entrepreneurs and nonprofit organizations in order to build their impact, influence, and revenue. And I've had to practice doing that, but those 3 steps are invaluable. This is gold I want to give all of you because I know how powerful stories are. And in fact, one of my dear friends, I just want to mention his name, who's no longer on this earth plane, Roland Takaoka. He was my wingman for 4 years when I did online video interviews live with him, and he would be the tech person. He had a wonderful story he had sent me in a manuscript form about his experiences in rehab and in the hospital that changed his life. And what was so impressive to me is he lived his life after that 3rd stroke with half of his body paralyzed, his whole right side. He had been a DJ, he'd been a guitarist, he'd been, racquetball player. He had to reinvent his life. He wrote this beautiful story, which I ended up publishing because it never got published. And he passed away suddenly from a 4th stroke. So I decided, you've got to get his story out. And I renamed the book Roland's Story, Inspired by a Stroke, a memoir of hope, healing, and transformation. Why I did that is because we all have stories within us, and I want you to value your stories and get out the positive ones. Just as Scott mentioned, there's so much negative media. We are being bombarded by negative media, and whether you realize it or not, it does affect you, affects me. I still want to know what's going out there, but I still hunt for what's a positive story I can find to uplift me. And that's what I want to do for each of you. I want to uplift you. And if you go to differencemakersmedia.com, you can get a free story strategy guide. to give that to you and help you and tell your story. You never know what lives you will touch. That's
Yeah,
what I want you to.
well, no, I greatly appreciate that for all of our listeners, for all of our viewers. I totally agree with you on the. I mean, it's funny because I also, as a sales trainer, when people, when we talk about one of the modules I teach is 7 steps to building a rapport in a minute and a half or less. Well, rapport is all about feeling. It's all about, getting to know, like, and trust very quickly. But I say, please do not answer with your title. So many people, they look at their own business card, and when somebody says, well, what do you do? I mean, they read their business card. It's like, you could have given me that. That doesn't do it. So I do the same. I like to create. I think one of the things that we've lost, it's not, I know we have lost the art of creating curiosity in those first interactions and in those conversations. So one of my favorite go-tos is doing what I can do to create curiosity. And part of that is being playful and fun. Well, if you're playful and fun, it's also bringing feeling into it. It's a different kind of thing, So, I might say, when somebody says, Scott, what is it that you do? Well, it's easy. I help people help people. That's the short answer. How do you do that? Very well, thank you.
I love it. I love it.
That's the response right there, right? It's takes them off guard. They were not expecting that, at the least. And then they say, no, what do you do? No, I really am good at it. No, come on. Well, you've now created curiosity. You've got them wanting to know, as opposed to really not caring. I mean, there's really
true.
How many times do people say, what do you do, or who are you? And they don't really care. It's just kind of the way they've been culturalized, right? So if you break through that curiosity zone, it's pretty amazing. So I love the fact that you do this a lot with nonprofits too. And again, really crafting stories with a cause, right?
Yes, I've seen some wonderful things happen to nonprofits when I help them tell their story. And I think the challenge for nonprofits, especially, is that there's and also entrepreneurs, we're also busy doing what we do, that we don't focus time and attention on getting the word out, expanding our exposure and our impact with other new people.
Right.
I'd like to share a quick story. I don't know how much time we have. One more story.
Keep doing it. You're doing
all right.
it.
Because I think that's what's the most fun. I love stories. I love the stories behind the stories. The when they have stage rehearsals. That's so much more fun. So here's a fun story. Some of you doubt your abilities. I want to let you know, push past the fear. Just act as if you can do it anyway. And you will find, surprisingly, that you probably can do more than you expect. A number of years ago, my husband and our son, Andrew, and I volunteered on a healthcare mission. You mentioned about health. A nonprofit I'm still working with called Causes for Change International, founded by Suli Alvarado, helping children in need in Ecuador. Suli was born in Ecuador and suffered from polio and was only able to be healed here in the United States, and goes back to help others in Ecuador. And she's helping people in this country as well, in the United States. So I asked Suli, what can we do to help you? We were physically going there. My husband was going to do free dental work on kids who had never been to a dentist. Andrew was going to be teaching children how to brush their teeth. They never had a toothbrush before. I also have a music background. I was going to entertain the children while they waited in the 90-degree heat for their first ever dental exam and tooth extraction. But I was also asked to gather 1,000 Beanie Babies. 1,000, because Suli knew we were going to be working with at least 1,000 kids, and they were going to be scared. They'd never even seen a shot before. There wasn't going to be a dental office or anything. My husband was working in classrooms with, bare floor and setting up in a chair, and children were going to get, Novocaine, but still they would be scared. So I didn't know if I could gather 1,000 Beanie Babies. It sounded like an insurmountable number. Oh my gosh. I thought I had to try, right? So just like I do for clients, I had to believe in myself, and I put out the news on media sites. We're looking for donations of Beanie Babies. It was very popular at the time.
Yeah.
Please, contact me, bring over whatever you can, because we want to bring these to kids in need in Ecuador. So like within the week, I got a call from the wife of someone I knew in the film industry who said, my daughter and her friend were cleaning out their closet. We'd like to bring over some Beanie Babies. And I thought, oh, great. They opened the door of the car and they had these huge garbage bags filled with Beanie Babies. So I'm counting out the Beanie Babies later and get goosebumps again. There were about 300 Beanie Babies, my first donation. And I thought, originally I thought I could only do 300. But as the time went on, more and more people heard about it. I ended up with 1,800, almost double. Yeah. And I thought, isn't that amazing? If we don't let fear get in the way, false expectations appearing real, and we just allow ourselves to be limitless in our thinking, we can achieve great things. Don't listen, be aware of the story you play in your mind, and then you can tell that negative story to go away. You're going to believe in more than what you think can be possible. You're going to just believe in yourself.
Yeah, for sure. That another concept that I share a fair amount is there actually is no thing such as the fear of rejection, because the only person that can reject you is you. It's not what anybody else says to you that counts. It's what you say to that. It's what you say to you when they stop talking.
Yes, that is exactly it.
So it's
Scott, you have the same mindset, definitely.
Yeah. So it's that point of, if you and I are not doing something and I ask you to do it and you say no, so we're still not doing it, it didn't get worse. It might not have gotten better, but it didn't get worse either. I mean, but at least there was the possibility of something better coming out of it. So again, I think that's
Right.
Hopefully people take what you're sharing here about their stories and understanding the one thing that a story does, absolutely, is it makes you the expert, because there is only one you telling your story. Nobody, and
Exactly.
some people can tell your story, but nobody can tell it with the detail or the intricacies or the feeling that you can. And so
Yes.
that's powerful. So how do you wrap feeling into stories?
And I just want to add one more thing to what you were saying about it makes you the expert. It also makes you unique.
Yes.
So because no one is you, only you are you. So how do you wrap feeling into your stories was the question.
Yeah.
Well, I think you want to look at your story about what does the story bring to other people. So you look at the whole nugget of the story. I've written books, I've written articles. I do interviews as well. And I always ask my guest, what's the end goal? What do you want to accomplish at the end of this? So, I want to accomplish to help you create a story that's impactful. So I'm an emotional person anyway, you probably can tell. That's how I am. So when you have a story, I want you to envision to yourself, what do you want to create by the story? It's not like Jane walked to the store, she bought 2 eggs and came home. Okay, well, so what's the point? Did she go to the store to feed her starving mother? Because it was winter and they didn't have much food. And she came back and the food made such a difference that her mother's eyes now could sparkle and glow. And she knew that she could overcome all the snowdrifts and go through whatever it would take to help them up. There's got to be some emotion in your story. That remind me of a book. I love children's stories because I want to empower our next generation to know that they can make a difference.
Yes.
And so I study children's books, and I love taking adult stories and putting them into a children's book. There's a book called Brave Irene. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I have not.
It just came in my mind because I was just improvising here and thinking about a child feeding her mother. And Brave Irene is about a young girl who wants to help her mother in a snowstorm deliver a dress to a client. And she goes through everything you can imagine, and finally is able to deliver this dress and come back to her mother and help the family, So whatever you do, remember the other important thing about emotion in your story is emotion is the key to connect you deeply with someone. So when Scott shares his stories with us, then I think, I want to get to know more about Scott. Not only is he an expert, but he's an interesting person. So my heart is open to you. And hopefully your heart can open to me and say, I might like to get to know Lynn a little more. Let's connect. And that's what Be Connected is all about, connecting at the deep level, not just the superficial level.
Yeah, exactly. We all have the opportunity to go so much deeper, especially in today's day and age. And there's such a need for it. There's such a void in the marketplace right now where people are searching for connection. And, um, how do we just have somebody to let off a little steam with? I mean, because there's plenty of stuff causing steam right now, right? I mean, there's plenty of sides, and I'm a advocate for, we can't be polar opposites, because virtually at polar opposites, it's extremely difficult to accomplish anything. If we can get a little closer and start to exchange some thought process and feelings, then we can pretty much address and solve anything. When you're absolutely diametrically opposed, it's hard to do. And I think that's why this show is important, or one of the reasons the show is important, is because today's rhetoric has become very absolute, and or everything is assigned with, if you don't agree with me here, you are a fill in the word. It's so many different things, right? I mean, it's become very absolute that if you don't agree with me, it's not because I have my right to my opinion, you have the right to your opinion. It's because you're obviously a whatever. And that's not what it is.
No, well, that's name calling. That's not respectful. And I grew up, that's what kids do, bullies do. But people in leadership
That's a great point
positions,
right there. That's what bullies do.
yeah, I mean, people in leadership positions, whatever you do, if you're out there speaking or writing or business, I think you have a responsibility to be respectful of other people. So I don't care what your race, religion, anything is. What I care about is being respectful of others. No one needs to have a bully around, because it's just going to hurt people and tear them apart. And perhaps the reason I feel so strongly about stories and the way I approach people is because after having had the loss of my mother, who was everything to me, and then recently my father passed away, it just made me aware we only have so much time on earth. We all only have so much time. We don't know when it's going to happen, when we won't be on this earth plane. And so the question becomes, like Mike, the energy healer, how do you want to honor your mother? How do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to be remembered? What stories are people going to say about you? And are they stories you'd be proud of? So I want you to just all to be aware of that. What stories are you creating every day, even in how you treat people?
Yeah, very much so. My platform and a big part of this show is to build a worldwide community where it's full of respect, honor, and dignity for all. And utilizing this platform to share that kind of messaging. And again, we all have that opportunity. Those come from choices, whether we choose to respect, honor, and dignify each other. Respect is how I treat you. Honor is how I lift you up. Dignity is how we both feel after the fact. And so the reality is we have opportunities to do this. And this is why I encourage people to have their own shows and talk to their people in their sphere of influence, because they will always know different people. We will all know different people going forward, so there's so much great information out there. And I think this has been really valuable. And I think it's important. How do you specifically help people craft those stories? Are there some quick tips in the last few minutes that we have here together that we can share with everybody?
Sure. Well, in order to build a powerful story and craft it, you want to be authentic. You want to be real. So you have to be willing to be vulnerable. open yourself up. And a powerful way to create a story is to think actually of something that happened. You can call it a call to action, something that happened in you that changed you. So for me, my mother's passing was a call. And then you go, it's a structure, a flow. You think of beginning, middle, end. So when you tell your story, you want to have some kind of beginning, a call, then something that brought you down, because you got to have some change in the story that tugs at the emotion. So that, to me, I can call it the pit. What's the thing that happened that was so horrible that you didn't know if you wanted, like, I didn't know if I wanted to live anymore.
Yeah.
And so then from the pit, you're at your lowest. You want to have a journey with your listener, with your reader, that you are climbing out of that pit and coming to something brighter. And ultimately, just to think of it like a shape. I heard a man, well-known man, speak of it like a U. So you start at a call, you go down to the pit, you have your journey, and at the top, you have your breakthrough. And so for me, the breakthrough was the realization that all of our stories matter and that we do make a difference. And you listening make a difference. So think of those 4 elements: the call, the pit, the journey, and the breakthrough. And see if you can weave that when you have a longer time into your story. You will get remembered that way, and you will be able to make a difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tremendously helpful from that side too. The other thing, when you were saying we all have a story, and it just, I quote this quote so many times. It's Mother Teresa, but she said, "If you can't feed 100, feed one." And so I think sometimes people think, well, I'm not that great a storyteller, or my story's not that important, or whatever negative chatter they've got going on, right? Well, if you don't feel comfortable and confident today that you can feed 100 with your story and with what's your life experience, feed one. Take one at a time. If everybody would take the opportunity to do something of value for just one other person at a time, amazing how the difference the world would be today, in my opinion.
True. That's true. That reminds me of a quote by Jane Goodall that I used to think I made up, and I found out Jane Goodall said it. And it's, we all make a difference, and we get to choose what kind of difference we want to make. So that comes down to our stories. In feeding one, you get to choose, and you can choose to start. Right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. So how do people get a hold of you?
So you can get a hold of me by going to differencemakersmedia.com, and you can put your name and email in the opt-in, and you'll connect. And also there's a contact button on there. Lynn at differencemakersmedia.com is my email address. Happy to give you my cell if you want. It's on the website. If you would like, it's 847-630-1174. I'd like to first connect with you. Even it's easier on first in writing, because I can send you some information, a difference makers assessment. You could have a moment to reflect on what your needs are, and then we could really have a more cohesive and a talk where we can really I can understand what your needs are, because I'm here to help you in whatever way possible. Because I know together, you've heard this saying, but together everyone achieves more. Everyone does achieve more when we work together. We all have different strengths. And I applaud you for listening to Scott, because he is definitely someone who's very wise, intuitive, and a caring person. And I feel we were brought together for a reason. So I'm really grateful to be on this show, and I'm happy to help those of you who want to get your stories out and make a bigger difference.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Lynn, and thank you for being here. Great information. In fact, there's some probably about a third of the way in here. There was some golden nuggets that I'll go back and listen to and grab for sure. So thank you so much for joining us here on Scott Schilling Speaks. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And thank all of you for joining us here on Scott Schilling Speaks. We'll see you again at the next event. God bless. Have a fabulous day.
Bye-bye.